I just watched Sam and Ruckus and Weaponized. Always inspirational. It occurred to me that maybe I might be fermented enough on the topic now that I can make a go at explaining what I mean by a deep state in alt media. You know what a placebo is? I'll give you my explanation for what a placebo is. Placebo is a drug that is a blank drug. It doesn't really work. And they give it to experimental patients who are taking a real medicine to compare the results between the placebo and the real medicine. The patient reports of the results. And when they compare the two, the placebo testimony is usually that the medicine didn't work. And they compare the results because the people don't know when they take the medicine which one is the blank medicine, which one is the real medicine. Like I can imagine it being used for, mood altering drugs or something like that. Anyway, what I want to talk about is rhetorical placebo. It's an explanation that you give yourself for what's going on, that you tell yourself works. Like, for example, suppose you're dealing with the very difficult question of whether or not there's a deep state in alt media. What you tell yourself is, well, alt media is like Camazotz is this land and wrinkle in time that you get to by traveling through space, and it's an occupied zone. The spirit world is an occupied zone. All the children have to bounce the ball in perfect time, and anyone who breaks ranks is taken prisoner and subject to re-education and re-indoctrination so that they bounce the ball in time. Well, Monty Python are villains, and they're even more clever than Camazotz. They have a scene in Monty Python, The Holy Grail, where a prince is being held prisoner, and the guards are smiling at him while he puts a note on an arrow and goes to the window and shoots the note out the window, and the guards just smile at him through the whole thing. What this indicates isn't that the guards are deaf, although that's what you're supposed to think. It's that the guards know that he's going to call for help, and that's what they want him to do. Noam Chomsky had a theory that you could just tell people what's going on and they wouldn't do anything. That you could just come right out and rub it in their faces and they wouldn't do anything. So the question of whether or not Camazotz or psychological profiling so intimate that it leads to psychological prediction, or something as simple as just taunting, is going on in old media. But there's no question that the person who was most closely aligned with the Beatles and British prog rock intelligence has the name of the Defense Secretary of Israel, Katz. And Tony Levin worked with George Bush in calling it a line in the sand. He said I should be castrated for failure to date rape. Let me explain this again to the ding-dongs like Abby Martin and Patricia Fripp and Rainey Kalik. Let me explain this again. They said I should be castrated for failure to date rape because I refused. They held up a letter that captured what they were doing and implying, which was incitement. The message of the Israeli team Miles Kirshner, Larry Lederer, Martin Andelman, Leslie Katz, Thomas Gordon was all the same. Mike Exler said you blew it. Exler. It was all incitement of date rape as a glorification of consummation that the woman would want. And I refused to buy it. I said no. Therefore, I was yellow at the line. I was a coward. I was chickenly. And I said no. I was raised by distinguished citizens of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. And they were like, that's too good. You have to go. And they said, lick the lobe, Nuck. Lick the lobe, Nuck. And this was all consecrated by Joe Biden, Barack Obama. Barack Obama was furiously tearing at the carpet, justifying what he said was a +1 dag, which never happened. It's impossible to disprove or prove either way. It never happened. They said the rapid eye movement investigation of Peter Gabriel of a neuroimplant, which congested shut memories of being kidnapped and tortured as a child on a freezing cold day, was proof of a defiant trespass. And for them, that worked out perfectly. Robert Fripp held his nose and dropped his pick. And they said, thou shalt have, they've terrorized me with what they're doing to me. They poisoned me into horrible conditions that I can't shake. And they've operated on the principle that I should accept martyrdom, that I should be like Aaron Bushnell, that I should be like Sean Strupp. So who are these people? The defenders of Leslie Katz, which means conspicuously Peter Gabriel and Robert Fripp. It means conspicuously Yoko Ono and Sean Lennon, because they claimed that being yellow at the line made me unable to comprehend my moral significance, and that if I had pounced on Leslie and satisfied her, I would have had the manhood to rescue John Lennon from the huffing and puffing of the Three Little Pigs. This is their mindset. It's a whirlwind gig. And this conspicuous gunning for me about John Lennon comes from the Katz intelligence circle. And John Lennon gave the name to the word game Two Virgins, because they came howling with the delivery. They called it here, like hair, Here, here, have one, queer ball. And this is their skit. Now, these people are hiding that this was about the AIDS attack. And they're not investigating it, and they're not showing the evidence that it was planned from a time way before John Lennon accepted his role, which was to play a, advanced telepathy revolving door between reality and fantasy, where nothing is real. They staged his assassination. It was a double fantasy. And the evidence is perfectly clear. I mean, see these notebooks here? They extend down the table, and there's boxes in this house. 20 of them. I was a straight A student when I finally got away from them and was allowed to go to school. You can look at some of my movie clips. But they want everybody bouncing the ball in the same time. And who are they? They're the so-called alternative media, you see. And they wanted me to come to them for help. That's the image of the guy at the window and the guard smiling. Yes, go ahead. Go call for help. Why don't you call Robert Fripp and Peter Gabriel for help? Because they were the hidden hands behind what had been done to me, evidently. And they hid it under this revolving door between reality and fantasy that John Lennon devised with advanced media. Think about this. John Lennon sided with Ronald Reagan. He supposedly all through the 60s was a rival with Reagan. Ringo Starr and Oliver Stone said, no, they're holy bosom. And the troubadours of Hollywood responsible for this had me in D.C. the day Reagan claimed he came out and waved me when John shot James in the head. It's a double entendre, tricky business of language skills that was at work in all of this. Is operational when you actually look at the evidence, which of course you're not supposed to. You're supposed to bounce the ball in time. Ronald Reagan was supposedly a moralist, like what was his name? Robert Bork was like the Russian Orthodox Church. A moralist, a puritanical moralist. But who's the face behind the face? Who was pulling Reagan's puppet strings? Was this Donald Trump character who has children being raped on Epstein Island with statues of apes? The person who tried to kill me and who abused me by burning my arm, laughing about dragging me through glass, got people to chase me. So I had nowhere to go but to beg him for sanctuary in his rotten house. This kid was named Saul. That's a big name, and he was an Israeli kid, right? And he used to say, I don't want to live on this planet no more. I don't want to live in a nuclear war. I just want to go to far away to an island and live like an ape man. Remember the ape on Epstein Island? And they have me up on Mount Desert Island. And they have this feedback system through the ranks of the Christian intelligence circle, saying, they tormented me in the neuroplasm. Gabriel saying it's going to blow right down inside your soul. This thing is a pressure cooker of suffering in the soul. I was screaming and screaming and screaming. I went to Iowa down to the Des Moines River. My eyes were counter-dilating. I had ocular gyrations. I pressed my face to the cement for comfort. And I remembered being kidnapped, tortured, and gassed on a freezing cold day when I was a little boy by the pitmen, which is like the quarrymen. And this was what Gabriel was saying, chasing me into homelessness, tear gassing me in my house. I went to the emergency room with my eyes literally on my cheeks from something they did, something that hit me in the neck. Now I'm being treated for glaucoma. I'm already deaf. He was saying it was rapid eye movement study, that they wanted to know all the ins and outs. Remember Clockwork Orange, you had time for the old and out. Because the Axis got in the back door of Hollywood. And they encrypted this whole thing in the pornographic cinema. Now, you may not like it. I may not like it. But women are known to want. She's Gotta Have It, I think, was number one to spike all these movies. I try to avoid lewd mindsets. I really do. I don't like them. But people inculcate that into you psychologically. And this was something that they were using to break open the door of the Midwest to say, you think you're better than us. They attacked a distinguished couple who'd been married 66 years, voted by the Council of Poplar Bluff. You can look into it yourself. Distinguished citizens of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. He was a newspaper man. She was a homekeeper. They went fishing. We went fishing together. She would knit things. She was a beautiful person. These were wonderful people. I learned to mind my manners from them. I was very shy and withdrawn around adults because I didn't want to bring offense. And you would think that somebody like that would be favored by Reagan, but no. He had Donald Trump in the wings, and a big, horrible character named Donald broke my sister's ribs and put me into that subconsciousness and took me to strange women when I was about 12 or 13 years old. Now, one of the mayors of Pittsburgh apologized to me, and I'm gratified by that. He had shame. He admitted this up. You know, I haven't asked very much of my peers about any of this. I have asked them to admit that it happened, to understand that there's questions about this show business lobby claiming something about trying to make it connect in their intelligence system from bits and pieces that they could put together from manufacture. That Lenin was somehow wronged by my um, reticence towards the line in the sand, the lash in the sand, the pussy whip in the sand. I backed off. I didn't want to go that road. And they were taunting me and being belligerent to me about it. And then one of them gets in trouble at Harvard and makes this joke out of the situation by getting the women of the advisory board to exonerate him. So the women were the ones who were accusing me of not being man enough. They were saying the virginity proves that I wasn't man enough. And then they got around to saying virginity proves rape. And Robert Fripp dropped his pick. And it went through the Swami Nostra like a kid who wouldn't dribble the basketball in time. And it's ghoulish to look at these people who did this as a cover story for the AIDS attack, doing absolutely excellent work trying to get help for Gaza, but being ignored by the same people. To be aware that some of them, Norm Finkelstein, for example, had something about the Holocaust industry. Well, TikTok had a peep show where you would go back and forth from seeing children with half of their head exploded, still alive but doomed, to these, you know, Asian strutters with big knockers bouncing. I mean, the deep state is in all media. There's no question in my mind about that. I call it sandbagger law, and I call them sandbaggers. I tried my best in this talk to explain how you can go about explain it, to explain how to explain that.